Where did you get the idea to do the Sonic Pumpkin, James? Is that something you were cooking for a while?
Where did I get the idea to do a Sonic Pumpkin? Yeah. I thought for 2 seconds.
No?
And it was like, I was like,
he woke up that morning.
I was like, what's a funny pumpkin?
It's Sonic!
Well, originally I was going to try and do a stencil of the Sonic from the movie
the good one.
Pre-change to make it worse.
Before they ruined it.
But he had so many lines and crevices and details drawn into and around his eyes.
You got to draw the gums.
That it was going to be just too much. I didn't have the tools for it, so I said I'd go with a more basic design.
Inferior
classic
design.
Sonic.
I think the problem with the original Sonic design was that you could picture him having sex.
That's the best part. That's what I want for all of my
He was too real.
characters.
It's like you understand that this creature has a penis,
He was
and
spindly.
we'll use it.
Welcome to Funhaus, everybody. This week's episode is sponsored by Away and Raid Shadow Legends. I've got my friends Elise and James, as always, and good bud Jamie here.
I'm a good bud.
How are you doing, Jamie?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really well, man.
I can tell.
First time on the show.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Very. Absolutely thrilled.
So this is the Sonic podcast. I hope you come prepared.
Sometimes they talk about other things, but for all intents and purposes, it's a Sonic cast.
I think I exclusively exist on this channel just to talk about animals having sex.
Mm-hmm. Well, last week we talked about Blair Witch. Next week we're talking about Walking Dead.
Oh, God.
This week.
I have signed an NDA.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. But yeah, you, of all of us, are closest to the actual film industry.
True.
Having worked on some major productions.
So I existed adjacent to things, yes.
We're expecting some real insights, Jamie.
They will be outside.
Dish. We need you to dish.
But this week we are going to cover a few different stories. First, we're going to have David Benioff and Dan Weiss are out of Star Wars as the streaming wars heat up. We've got some new details on Game of Thrones prequels from HBO. Netflix is testing a controversial new feature. And then we'll talk about our thoughts about Taika Waititi's new Nazi comedy, Jojo Rabbit.
Not see your average comedy.
I think that's how Taika Waititi wants it described as,
Yeah,
because every single poster makes sure to emphasize satire.
It's a
It's like
satire.
satire. But the fact that you're just like Nazi comedy.
I mean, that's really what it was.
It's the buddy Nazi comedy of the century.
You don't seem to have a direct line to what was Fox Searchlight Films marketing department, do you? They're not calling you, telling you how to refer to the film.
You want to tone down the Nazi thing?
Yeah, so let's start off with what I think would be the bigger story of the week. New controversy, maybe not controversy, but big news in Star Wars world is David Benioff and Dan Weiss, the former showrunners from Game of Thrones, are out of the Star Wars universe. If you didn't know, they had agreed to oversee a new trilogy of films set in the past around when the Jedi came to exist. But I guess people were looking forward to this, maybe more so than Rian Johnson's supposed trilogy. All in all, it seems like Star Wars is all over the place. Maybe no one really knows what the future holds for the series. But what we do know now is that David and Dan are out, and it most likely has to do with a huge deal they signed at Netflix worth $250 million back in August. So they're claiming they're too busy now. There's only so much time in the world to work on things, and so they're stepping back from Star Wars.
That was I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
They're too busy?
So they're kind of known for working on only one thing, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well...
Busy is the new Hollywood excuse.
Exactly.
I've got to wash my hair.
It's like, hold on. You found time to make 5 films in 2 years and have some sort of weird sex party ring thing that you also have I'm talking about Hollywood in general.
I mean, I was going to say, I can name 3 people that you're right about.
But you have found time to do all those things, but you can't find time to cash your $250 million check alongside your $350 million check.
What do you do with the money?
Come on, tell us the truth, Benioff, Weiss, and Feige.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because like this is it's pretty vanilla.
Yeah.
Well, not excuse really. It's a pretty vanilla statement as to why they are stepping away. Lots of underlying currents in politics at play, though.
We are. The streaming wars are upon us now. You know, so these mega studios are signing exclusivity deals. I thought it was a little strange when they announced this deal a couple of months ago, knowing that they're also supposed to work in the Star Wars universe and release 3 films in the next 10 years.
I'm busy is the new "It's not you, it's me." That's the Hollywood corporate version of that.
Also with Disney Plus, how are they possibly going to explain that this was them being busy and not Disney being like, I don't really want that to be on there instead of our thing. I wanted to have a party on the same day, and you can't have a party when I'm having a party.
It's a good question. I mean, I am surprised Netflix threw that huge chunk of money at them, and knowing they also had Star Wars to do, and it's like, here's $250,000, but I know you're also working on the biggest franchise of all time. But you're putting us first, right? So I don't know. It was a little strange when it happened. I was honestly kind of expecting something like this. I don't know. So they also did blame it a little bit on toxic fandom. So they've taken a lot of heat over the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones recently. And they're stepping into maybe even a more rabid...
Did they really?
You didn't
game
notice?
about
I must have missed that,
Well, essentially, to catch you up a little bit, in the last couple seasons of the show, they ran out of books to base the stories off of.
Yeah.
And the writing, people say, went downhill. Yeah, suffered a little bit.
I feel like we can all agree that the end of the show was not as well written as the beginning of the show. Whether you liked it or not is a different discussion.
But wasn't Star Wars why they shit the bed?
That's what I thought.
That was
they were too
that was the
distracted?
assumption, was that they were trying to rush the ending of the show to get to their Star Wars.
Yeah, we got real stories.
They were like,
We
we
gotta
need
talk about
to
midichlorians for 6 hours.
because I think HBO would have given them as many seasons as they wanted for this show, but they said no, we're
They did.
ending it at 8.
Yeah.
They
and
wanted
then
to give them more.
and we're getting out,
Yeah.
and everyone in the online community was like, oh, they just want to make their Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I mean, if toxic fandom is a part of it, definitely seeing the reaction of Rian Johnson in Last Jedi, if you're already taking heat from Game of Thrones
my
and
God.
you're looking at that as the barometer for what you might face with Star Wars.
Yeah, if you
Wow.
can't handle the Game of Thrones fans, I have to
Yeah.
imagine the Star Wars fans would be
Especially
terrified.
like I just finished my first foot-long sub. Like, I'd like another, please. Slide it down my gullet. Basically, you're trading like one public thrashing for another potentially.
Well, and after The Last Jedi, people, the fans of Star Wars did run several actors essentially off of social media and have been attacking Rian Johnson pretty much constantly since then. They won't give up the fact that movie was not what they wanted it to be.
And just like the concept of being ribbed over your work in general is not really something a lot of professions have to deal with. So it's like they came to make shit, not to be bashed for how they're making it. So it's like nobody really teaches you how to do that in filmmaking school. And so I can see that being a pretty heavy load. I mean, like, plumbers aren't like making a sink work and then somebody's like, that sucks so bad my pussy fell off. Like, plumbers get to just do their thing and they're not made fun of by the entire fucking planet.
Not your plumber. You do shout at your plumber.
I do.
Like
I have
that,
to.
though.
He doesn't work fast enough, and my pussy did fall off. So.
You think they should teach class on how to deal with social media outrage?
Yes, actually, yes.
I mean, I think they do in like elementary or primary and like secondary schools now. I think a lot of that is part of it, is like learning how to deal with your online identity. I notice that like I see kids in online talking about this, that like they're taught about how to like protect your online identity, how to not be toxic. Like, it is a thing, I guess, maybe in more liberal schools.
I would say too, just like kind of in defense of the fandom, I like, obviously people are really passionate about the media they consume and stuff, but I also, maybe we haven't seen it in a wide enough scope, but it has felt like it's kind of like a wildfire. Like, as it's going, it burns really, really hot, but then if you just step away for a little while, like if you just walk away for a little while, then the fire burns out, and then you can kind of come back and do whatever you want to again. And I think kind of what you're saying about the Star Wars thing, they see that's stepping from a fire that they have from Game of Thrones into potentially another fire. But if they just don't do that, then they can go to this other path where they're working on something that no one's going to judge. No one has something to comparatively judge them on, number one, because it's probably going to be an original piece. And then two, they just won't have to be in that world, and then they can move on with their careers after a certain point.
Or maybe they just did, it was, their eyes were bigger than their stomachs, and they did think they could stack all these projects and make it work. You look at someone like Taika Waititi, it's getting solicited offers from everywhere, and he keeps having to put projects on hold, and it's like, well, Thor 3 or Thor 4 coming out when 2021, but then who knows about Akira? Like,
that's the saddest part of that.
It's just these directors that are so coveted now. It's almost like what their next 10-year slate worth of content's going to be, because it's so bizarre kind of how they're getting locked in.
It is strange that these like mega corporations are just snatching up whatever brilliant people that they can find that fans seem to respond to.
The four of us are sitting right here. God.
Thank you so much for including me in that. This was something that like boggled my mind a few years ago, like to see how for a minute the trend was to get directors who had one cool thing that popped off a little bit, and then they would be given these gargantuan keys to
here's $200 million film.
And that's basically, and it's like they kind of lucked out with Taika. But I think most people's plans with these directors is to just find someone who will run it like a TV director. Like movies are becoming like television, where you have an executive producer who's sort of calling the shots and giving a mood board.
Well, especially something like a Star Wars film, where I have to imagine there is not a lot of creative freedom given to these directors. You have to kind of toe a company line. I think especially Star Wars.
Is there? Because it seemed like Rian Johnson had a lot of freedom.
Yeah, it seems like Star Wars is the exception.
He did, except there, Josh Trank was fired from a Star Wars film. Chris Miller and Phil Lord were fired from Star Wars film. Colin Trevorrow was replaced by J.J. Abrams in a Star Wars film. There's been a lot of messing with the directors in Star Wars films by Kennedy. So, it seems at least that Rian Johnson had a lot of freedom, but there's a lot of these people who are probably more talented, more well-known than Rian Johnson that were taken off of projects because their supposedly directorial voice was too strong for Disney or Star Wars.
They basically just need a captain of the ship to like kind of make sure that the line producer doesn't lose their mind with the schedule going out of whack. And I think that the second the director's like, but what if we did a Dutch tilt? They're like, burn him alive! He shouldn't be here. He's got opinions.
Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, it doesn't seem like she needs people. She wants people to like toe her line. And I'm curious when or if her time might run out. If there's a problem with the perceived problem is with directors that are coming in and she's bringing them in and their visions. Like when does that run up to her eventually? If ever, I don't know.
I don't know.
This was the thing about getting into television that I was shocked about, was that at least in the shows that I worked on, the majority of the episodes were directed by a different person every time. So it was always really interesting to me to see how they would keep the tone consistent.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well,
very curious.
It's interesting because when I worked on Shameless, there was a director on there that actually went on to do Game of Thrones. Like those are two
wildly different.
Yeah, Mark
tonally.
Mylod. He's absolutely incredible. He's one of my favorite directors that I've worked with, and I think in television it's a different game than in film, because you're literally there to just be glue for the production in a lot of ways, and the creative aspect is really just matching a mood board more than it is doing anything independent.
So was like your showrunner then meeting with the episode directors to be like, okay, like here's the broader
they're kind of given
tone.
a idea about how things should feel, and then you're just kind of there to display the information that's mostly on the page and stuff. So that was like you would have a team of directors that would circle in and out, and it was always the executive producers were always like looming. Like I remember Gail Ann Hurd on The Walking Dead. She was there every single day, and she at the time I think was top dog for. She still is. I mean, her name's on everything, but I think that Angela Kang has sort of been the captain of the ship for a minute now. But she was always there, and she was always keeping everybody in tow. It was very interesting to see like this is not a director's medium at all.
Because I've listened to a lot of interviews with Mike Schur, showrunner of The Good Place, and some of his directors have directed episodically, and maybe a little less intense of an environment than Walking Dead. Mike Schur seems like a pretty like chill dude, pretty easygoing guy, And basically, like with that show, it's really interesting because there's so much that has been in different seasons big reveals, and for him it's a challenge of trying to get these episode directors to stay in tone with the show and what's about to happen without revealing to them what's going to happen.
Right.
Like it's
so you can't tell them the secret?
Yeah, he doesn't want to tell them what's going to happen in the show, but he needs them to direct the episode properly.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole thing.
Tricky.
It's super interesting. Like, I mean, that's what they did with the actors too, but
I mean, it's kind of like being a head chef for a party. It's like you're kind of telling everybody what they're making, and they can make it. If they make it wrong and it doesn't work with the rest of the meal, then that makes sense to get rid of them. But you don't really see the ingredients of making movies. So all you see is like, oh, this person got fired, this person got fired.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like, oh, it's calamity over there. Kathleen Kennedy's a monster who's reining everybody in. But like, devil's advocate, she's got an entire empire of emotions to match with a bunch of different people contributing to that.
Well, and I guess recently it was announced that Feige is somehow going to be involved in the Star Wars universe, and maybe he is there to act as that showrunner type personality to tie in whatever tone or themes that they're going for across these huge multiple trilogies of series. Oh, well. Is anyone here sad that these guys aren't making Star Wars anymore? Or has the tone turned so much on these creators that we're happy they're no longer involved in Star Wars?
No.
Yeah.
The biggest, I think the biggest upset was the Into the Spider-Verse guys going and being pulled off producing their Star Wars, and then moving to Into the Spider-Verse, and that being like an insane hit, but maybe that was for the best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the one that of everyone that's worked on this new Star Wars thus far that felt like, oh, could be a different kind of Star Wars movie. Because interestingly enough, for as much of the firing and stuff that's been happening in the Star Wars behind the scenes, they all feel pretty much the same. Like, I think the writing changes dramatically from movie to movie. The scripts are different, and the plot lines and themes are different, but like, none of them feel that different. We're even watching a trailer that like shows through a bunch of stuff. Like, unless you see one of the main characters, it's kind of hard to know which Star Wars movie any of these clips are from, kind of thing. But I do think that Phil Lord and Chris Miller have a specific tone that they have in all of their films that is unique.
Might have been
visually.
too far left field.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's like one perspective, but then there's someone like Jacob that could give you a timestamp of when those TIE fighters were.
Yeah, Jacob doesn't count though. I think as far as Benioff and Weiss go, like, I wasn't the kind of person who saw them coming up short at the end of Game of Thrones and thought these talentless hacks.
No.
Because in their defense, adaptation is really difficult too. Like, and when they ran out of story, things started to fall apart and fall away. That's definitely a fair criticism. When they had the material, things were really good, and it was some of the best television that's ever been put on screen. And adaptation is very difficult. Sometimes it's hard looking at a piece of source material and going, what's important, what needs to be pure, how is this going to be filmed, how is it going to be translated to a new medium.
Yeah.
And
how do I cut this down into something that can be on TV?
So even though they were going to work on an original trilogy, I was kind of excited to see how they would adapt Star Wars into whatever project they wanted it to be. More so than thinking they would just screw something up like they did Game of Thrones. But them not working on it also doesn't mean anything to me, because I think that is more of a statement on how invested I am in the future of Star Wars.
I don't believe it was their decision. I don't believe the excuse of like, yeah, we're a little tied up. I can't really make it over there.
Yeah.
Same.
Them
like,
saying they're too busy, it's like, I think you can find a way to not be busy if it means the difference between $350 million and $500 million. Like,
yeah, well, they may have been presented with an ultimatum, or they may have been presented with some type of deadline that they couldn't hit, and they went, we can't do that. And then the studio said, okay, you have to choose.
I feel like it was just like the backlash at the end of Game of Thrones. I could see a bunch of executives be like, hey, this is kind of poisonous for the brand right now, so like maybe go check your options.
I do. Part of the Netflix deal did require them to be on set for the production of whatever film and television shows they were going to be working on for Netflix. time-wise, that might have conflicted some. I do think also Disney is reworking whatever they have in mind for the future of Star Wars. It's going to change completely. So it doesn't really surprise me that they're scrapping maybe half-baked ideas that didn't really make it anywhere in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they need somebody to pull a Taika Waititi on Star Wars. I would rather something that does not fit the tone, but is a good movie.
Yeah.
Than they use the same lenses from the original set or something, and then it's just fine.
Do you guys think that they perceived Solo as an attempt? I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I can't make a personal judgment on it.
Solo is the furthest from an attempt at being something new and different.
Oh, okay, I don't.
Ron Howard
I'm,
It was just let's remake
I guess
everything.
my question is, could the people making it have perceived it as a shift in tone?
I think that's why they were fired.
Yeah, I think originally
Yeah.
maybe yes.
Yeah, but like
It
Ron
didn't
Howard's
pan out that way.
role in Hollywood is like kind of as he makes the movie.
He's a
like,
finisher.
by numbers.
He's a good director. Don't get me wrong, but he's a great director. But he kind of makes movies that that look like movies and feel like movies.
Because they brought
It's
him
nothing
in.
new or interesting.
They
at
brought
all.
him in as a closer on it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
reshot, I think, basically the whole thing.
Oh, he did?
Like I think they had to basically start from pretty much the beginning.
Well,
So-
not everything's going to be the Grinch.
yeah. He's great at making great movies, but if you're trying to stand out, like then you kind of sometimes you have to do something different. So I think when they consciously went from someone who makes different kinds of movies to someone who makes movies, that seems like a very conscious decision to say we want this to fall in line, not to stand out. But unfortunately, it didn't do so great. So maybe now that's where they started rethinking.
They didn't want it to do great. I have a theory about
Yes.
popular culture in general. This isn't a rogue theory. It's like I fully believe this is the case, that things have to be fine at worst. Nobody's trying to make a bad movie, but they're not trying to make the best movie because that would be too scary. So I think people really shoot for the middle, because most people when they watch movies in the country, they just kind of go like, I had fun while I was watching it, and that's really what they're shooting for. They're shooting for.
Call that Ratner.
Wait, do you
Okay.
think this is some kind of subconscious?
I think in a lot of ways, yeah. I think Solo
Interesting.
did fine, and so did the last two Star Wars movies. They were fine. People loved and hated them, and that's what you want.
Jamie, this is radical tinfoil stuff.
I'm
not
just
gonna lie to
saying.
you.
They might be coming for you right now.
I'm not trying to cause
Wait,
problem, but
Like, do you? But do you think it's coming from like the writers or the director?
that is
or-
that is an advertising thing. I think what was
Oh, you think? Oh,
things have to be okay at best, and
It just
at
needs to be
worst, I mean.
digestible. Something
Yeah.
you can go and eat, spend $20 on, and then just leave forever.
It just can't be boring. That's all, because then people forget it.
that's how I feel about most like popcorn blockbuster. Like
It's how pop
I'd-
music's made.
Yeah, she
I'd rather
walks
it be
out in the
bad
middle
and
of
I'm-
Gods of Egypt.
because it was boring. Like it
You
can
walked
be.
out of Gods of Egypt?
I
you kidding? They
did.
had
I did
all of
leave.
the gods.
I was like,
Boo.
I don't know if I took an Uber home or you took an Uber home, but one of us.
You should have taken the keys.
But I do would much rather a movie be bad and not boring than, it could be a cinematic achievement. But if I'm bored, I'm kind of like, oh.
That's what was so weird about Blair Witch was like that was a situation that was a part of I guess technically it's sort of a what's the word? It's a part of it had a legacy that it had to live up to, right? Sort of like in the Star Wars universe, you have these sort of like things that you need to hit in order to fit into the world or whatever, right? So like there was a lot of expectation going into it, but it felt like there was a lot of aiming down the middle, I feel like, with the advertising. It just felt so generic that it kind of disappeared.
Do you think they were relying too heavily on just the brand of the Blair Witch?
Yes,
Or
which was such a
people
mistake.
Yeah.
I really feel like I think that we were all kind of like, in theory, that makes sense to advertise on the Blair Witch, but.
Do you want to explain your connection for people that might not know?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I was in the 2016 reboot pool of Blair Witch. It was sort of a series, like a continuing of the story. I played the brother of Heather from the original, and it was a situation where the movie was, I guess, sort of looked at as for people, and it disappeared. And that was really interesting to me to see. Like, it would be better if it was dreadful in a lot of ways, because
It would be more memorable if it was terrible.
yeah, absolutely. To be forgetful is it's the worst crime you can commit in entertainment. You have
Yeah.
to be either so terrible that people can't stop talking about it, or so good that people won't stop talking about
Yeah,
it.
it's like how sometimes indifference is worse than hatred.
That's the opposite of love is indifference instead of hate, like that old adage. So it's like, people really want to make the worst movie of all time or the best situation for the whole rather than the best movie of all time, because they just want people to kind of go in and say, I had fun watching it, because that makes the most money. People passively enjoying things, but things have to be kind of like a little bit weird for people to remember it.
So you're saying you liked the Game of Thrones finale?
I'm saying we're talking about it more because it was controversial than if it had been perfect.
Okay.
Good point.
Kaboomed.
Well, I guess
I need to take a vacation after that.
You're
that's
not
very
alone.
heady. I feel like I need to escape, get away from it all.
Yeah.
Just
get away from it all.
Yeah.
Maybe with some new baggage from Away bags.
Oh my gosh.
Thoughtful luggage for modern travel. Away creates thoughtful products designed to change how you see the world. They started with the perfect suitcase, crafted with features that make travel more seamless. So all you have to do is think about where you're headed next. Because getting away means getting more out of every trip to come. I have Away's the bigger carry-on, which is their carry-on just sized up to make the most out of the overhead bin. It has a lightweight and durable shell that's made to last for a lifetime of travel. A 100-day trial lets you try any Away product on the road. A limited lifetime warranty means they'll fix or replace your bag if it ever gets damaged. I've taken my Away suitcase all over the world. Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, China, New York City, and I absolutely love it. I've never said love and suitcase in the same sentence before, and I truly mean it. If you travel at all, I highly recommend you check out Away. The Away suitcase is thoughtfully designed and very durable. Knowing that Away will fix or replace my suitcase ASAP if anything ever breaks means I never have to worry about my luggage. The 4 360-degree spinner wheels guarantee a smooth ride that doesn't stick or get caught. These wonderful little wheels make walking with this suitcase a breeze. One of my favorite features is a little removable laundry bag for dirty clothes. It keeps my stink off my fresh threads. It also has a handy built-in TSA-approved combination lock to keep your belongings safe and secure no matter where you are. It's easy to carry up and down stairs, onto buses, boats, and trains because it's so lightweight. I had to heft mine up over my head to fight my way through a busy night market in Thailand to get to my hotel. I had no problem because this thing is so lightweight. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com/filmhouse and use promo code filmhouse during checkout. So for $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com/filmhouse and use promo code filmhouse during checkout. I know I love my Away bag, and I think you guys will too if you travel much at all. I've taken mine all around the world, and I absolutely love it. So check out Away and help support the show. Bam. All right. What do we got? Oh, so I guess tied to the D&D thing, we do have some Game of Thrones news, prequel news this week. The one Game of Thrones prequel, kind of called The Long Night, was canceled. They actually shot a pilot. This is the one that had Naomi Watts and showrunner Jane Goldman. So I guess they announced that this week that is out. They're not going to move forward with that. This was, I guess, the Starks versus the original White Walkers, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones lore.
I didn't hear about this. Didn't they ruin that already?
I mean, we've kind of already seen it, and people didn't like it that much.
Such cynic.
Yeah.
Such cynicism.
Wasn't that a mistake the first time?
Didn't they ruin that already?
They finished the White Walkers off episode 9 of season 1, and then there's a whole another 5 seasons of the show.
I doubt
see.
they'll ever let it out of the vault, but I'd love to see that pilot.
Yeah,
I want to see the rest of the Walkers. We only know about the white ones.
The interesting
How'd they
thing
come
is that
about?
apparently the Game of Thrones pilot was terrible.
Yeah, the original.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, they
I do
reshot it,
remember hearing that.
Yeah.
They reshot it almost entirely and recast several main characters, I think.
Somewhere out there.
It'd be really
Somewhere
cool
out
to
there
see.
is a Bran who's like, my story.
Shucks. But like that happened with Lord of the Rings too, right? It was original Aragorn was somebody else.
It was
Yeah.
Stuart Townsend.
See, try again. Sometimes not a bad thing.
And poor Stuart Townsend, I think, shot 3 weeks, which is the amount of time it took to shoot Braveheart, actually. But
According to Bruce's dad.
he shot. I think he was on set for 3 weeks, I want to say, and then they were like, "This just isn't. This doesn't feel right."
And then we got Vigo. Would we even
They
know?
brought in Michael J.
Vigo's
Fox.
perfect.
And he wasn't right either.
I agree that Stuart Townsend would have been a weird Aragorn, but
Too pretty, maybe.
yeah, I don't know. I do feel genuinely horrible for him, though.
Especially because what have you seen him in since?
Do you think that would?
Charlize
He was
Theron
like,
for
it's
a
either
time.
this or Queen of the Damned, please. What did you say, Charlize
I
Theron?
said Charlize Theron for a time. Jamie's like, Jamie and I need to be on a porch in Georgia with some iced tea and
Darling,
our sun
I'm telling you, you
hats.
sit
Please.
down next to
Have
me.
you ever
We're
been
gonna
to
have a good
Georgia?
night, just talking and gossiping
Have you
about.
ever been to Georgia?
I mean,
you might
Russia.
want to reserve
I
that
mean
statement.
Russia.
until you-
I meant Georgia, Russia.
I'm gonna pop you.
Do you think Stuart Townsend would have been in Hidalgo?
Do you think they should have
He would
swapped
have been
Dan?
the horse.
Why are you picking on Townsend?
Hasn't he gone through enough?
Finally, someone's giving Stuart Townsend the bruising
The
he
business.
deserves.
Anyway,
poor
so
Charlize.
we lost one Game of Thrones prequel, but we got another one called House of the Dragon.
Which
Sounds a little stupid, honestly.
Sounds like a rap album by like Wu-Tang.
By
or
Wu-Tang,
something.
yeah. It's like, that was the House
Thank
of
God
Flying
Jamie's
Daggers.
here
or-
laughing at my jokes. I can't.
But so,
I'm buying that for $1, honey.
So House of Dragon, not just a pilot, but they're just going to go straight to series, 10-episode order of this show, based on a book called Fire and Blood, which is like, I guess,
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
what's going on back here?
Just kidding. Sorry.
But yeah, Fire and Blood was a fake, or not fake history, I guess it's all fake, but a history of the Targaryens when they came over and took over Westeros.
Ooh.
So this is the show we're getting instead. I guess this is, you got dragons instead of zombies. Maybe that's the difference or the selling point. I'm not too sure. I haven't read any of these books. I think a long time ago I read the wiki like Elise to
I'll read all
try
the
and figure out
wikis.
what's going on.
Voraciously read those wikis.
So yeah, it starts with Aegon the First Targaryen and his conquest of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, and then also includes the civil war known as the Dance of Dragons.
Dan and I
So-
talked about this a little bit. It'd be really cool if they showed the Doom of Valyria.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
with whatever explodes.
I'm assuming it's
also.
volcanoes erupting.
I was gonna say this sounds
Dark
like
magic?
an STI.
So the showrunners are Ryan Condal and Miguel Sapochnik. I don't know how to say that.
Oh,
But
that
anyway,
poor guy.
Sapochnik directed a bunch of Thrones episodes. Condal has produced a show called Colony for Sci-Fi, I think. He wrote a bunch of rock movies like Rampage and Hercules.
Dude, yes.
Rampage or Hercules? Which one?
Neither.
He's also written Unmade Highlander and Logan's Run reboots. So I don't know. I haven't seen anything from that guy. But the director Sapochnik did do the Battle of the Bastards and the Long Night episodes
Wow,
of Game of
okay.
Thrones, which were two
those
pretty impressive
Beasts
directorial
to
feats.
direct, right?
Seriously. So he'll be directing the pilot and supposedly overseeing, that portion of the show.
But if you're the kind of person who wants to go back in hindsight, criticize the credentials of Benioff and Weiss, these guys have way less.
Well, there's more directorial skill, maybe less writing skill.
Yeah, but
Because Benioff, he was
they didn't
Troy
direct.
in 25th
they
Hour.
didn't direct episodes of Game of Thrones. They just wrote them.
Yep. Did they not?
I don't
I
think
thought
so.
they directed episodes.
I think they might have done at the end there.
Like a couple of
Didn't
them,
they?
but like they were.
Did they direct the Red Wedding? No.
No, that was the same guy who did the Battle of Bastards, huh? No, different.
I don't think that the direction was the issue, right?
No.
It was the
Their
writing.
directing credits.
So, I don't think anyone's like, directing was terrible towards the end. It was like, oh, no, everyone was still into it. It just hated what was being shown. So, it's weird because this guy has Rampage and Hercules. And don't get me wrong, I love The Rock. But these
You
are
don't think of Hercules first?
the most boring, exciting movies you can ever possibly watch.
I recently was like, I wouldn't mind seeing Hercules, and somebody was like, we've seen it twice.
Yeah. Benioff wrote
Troy, 25th Hour. Which were actually pretty
He did
well
write
written.
X-Men Origins Wolverine,
yeah.
but general consensus is that studio involvement is what really, really boned
Yeah,
that
no.
one.
You're
I
right,
think
James,
It's the pedophile who's running the business over at the X-Men community over there.
Kaboom.
Yikes. David-
You gotta be more
Straight to
specific.
it.
David
Which
Benioff
one?
wrote
Brad.
David Benioff directed 3 episodes of Game of Thrones.
I think at a certain point they do whatever they want.
Yeah. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not all that much. So we'll see.
But yeah, I get what you're saying is these guys don't necessarily have a huge pedigree beyond proving having directed a few episodes. I would trust that guy to make some new ones. But
I think they have pedigree. I just think if you want to compare pedigree, they may not have the same amount of pedigree for the people that we've already feel like have failed us. So
Well, in the, what is it, the Fire and Blood books, there's supposed to be 2 of them. There's only 1 out so far, so maybe it'll run into the same situation where they burn through all the material before the next book comes out.
you just need to embrace shorter shows.
Yep.
Pick
Is it
an end
BBC
when you start
style?
it. Pick an end.
Yeah.
Say to your. I know everyone wants to get rich, so this is a stupid statement to nobody. But like, when you start something, you go in with a pitch, and we say we imagine this lasting 4 seasons. And then if the first season goes well, they go, congratulations, we've greenlit you for 1 more season with an extension to 4 if we so choose, as opposed to going, we love this show, we want to have it for the next 12 years. That's what fucks everything up every time.
You'll never be running a studio, James.
I
Not
know.
with that attitude.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm on the creator side, and I'm sure if someone came to me and they were like, hey, that little short film you made, is there any way you can stretch that into a
6 seasons of a movie?
26-hour series that spans over 18 seasons? We'll pay you $200 million. I go, yes, I can do that. I'm confident it would work.
I mean, it worked for the guy who did Lights Out. Like, he had like a 30-second film, and then they were like, do you want to do this for like 2 hours maybe? And
Yeah.
and it's just
He's like, it just lights out. And
I'll
they're
do,
like,
I'll do Ouija too.
3G. Oh, Jamie. God bless you.
So George R.R. Martin has said he is interested in writing episodes of this show, but does promise that he'll finish the next book on Game of
Dan,
Thrones
does he
first.
promise?
let him live.
Promise.
Let him
Promise.
live.
Let him live. He promises to finish it.
I'm not saying
That's
let
what
him live
he
as
promised
in he
on
might
his
die.
LiveJournal blog or whatever he
People
blogs
need to stop
on.
holding this man accountable. Have you ever seen the book? You ever looked at one of those books from the side?
That's a lot of words.
So
The
you
only
describe
people who
too?
are allowed to criticize him for taking so long are anyone who's written a book from that, when you look at it from the side, comes even remotely close to it being that fucking wide.
I'm convinced he's got a rat in his hair, pulling his arms and writing the book.
Stephen King could.
These
Stephen
books
King.
are.
It's like the
Stephen
rescuers down under.
Stephen King can
Wasn't he
he can
Ratatouille?
tweet at George
And
R.R.
then he fucked
Martin
his
and
sister.
say, "You better hurry up." He's the only person, as far as I'm aware, that could say Tom Clancy's Ghost writers can
does
say,
probably
"You
employ
better
an
hurry
army.
up, man! Like, what's the deal?"
I mean,
They're so long. They're so huge.
Okay.
let him do his own thing. I'm not going to pressure him to write any faster.
I'm going to pitch you guys a scenario.
I'm so excited.
Tom Clancy,
Love it.
Ghost,
Love it.
comes to haunt you and agrees to let you. He will.
Wait, Tom Clancy's dead?
Tom Clancy's dead. He will.
He's the ghost in Ghost
I'm sorry you had to
Recon.
learn this way.
He'll
Okay.
possess your body and mind, and he will write books with you as his conduit, which will be bestsellers. But once the ghost of Tom Clancy gets to have sex with your body.
Wait, is he in my body?
He's
and he has
possessing your
sex
body
with
and
my body?
having sex with it?
Well,
Is that just masturbation?
when you do the book writing process, there's no sexual component. He's just you're letting him like
Okay.
you basically become a vessel. So Tom Clancy, who is not a physical being, can use it to write because he can't. Like, I mean, it's just easier that way.
And to pay you back for using your body, he
No,
sexes you?
no. You pay him back
Okay.
Yeah,
for
the price,
for
the
becoming
curse. It's the
famous
curse.
by letting him have sex
But
with
I
your
don't know,
body.
how does the
I would
ghost-
have
Is it,
sex
like,
with
rough
ghosts.
or
Does he
soft
pay?
sex?
Like, does he peg himself? Does he basically like
you
go into
have
the shower
Describe
and
it
then
in detail.
controlling you pegs himself?
I don't know.
It
He
should
has
just be
sex with
he
me.
takes your body out and he can do whatever he wants with it for
For a
24
day?
hours.
Okay, which means he could contract some kind of STI,
Oh, absolutely.
but then he gets out of it because he's Tom Clancy.
Well, you're gonna be
He's a
rich.
ghost.
But if you're rich, you can cure
Who
anything.
cares?
So
I'm the
yes,
rich person
I
that
would
doesn't have
I
an
would
STI.
have sex or whatever with Ghost Tom Clancy.
I would as well.
I feel like being a conduit for somebody else's needs is already my sex life. So
Oh, okay.
really nothing changes.
So you're in.
There you go.
I accept.
And it just
Dan's
happens to be
in.
Tom
Oh, yeah, I'm in.
Clancy.
Is it like
It's a
that
win-win
espionage
scenario
spy
as far
stuff
as
that
I'm
he's
concerned.
famous for, or does he start writing like romance
Like Harry
novels?
Potter.
You're rich and you're guaranteed to get laid at least once a year. So
Damn,
By
that's
a
good.
ghost.
Not even a question. The answer is maybe.
Well, anyway.
All right. So next story. Netflix is testing a new variable playback feature on their mobile app, which allows you to play whatever you want at half speed, 3/4 speed, time and a half speed. And this, for some reason, has people horribly upset that Netflix is once again ruining cinema.
Is Kathleen Kennedy one of them?
Yes, she's real pissed. I'm sure she could
Mad at
care less,
Netflix,
honestly.
yeah.
But this is something that we've had on DVD and Blu-ray players for a long time. Something personally I like. Whenever I'm watching a podcast or listening to a book, I'll generally crank it up past normal speed. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would watch The Godfather at 2 times, but for some reason, I guess it's the internet, so you'll find people that are pissed about everything.
Well, Rampage, you'd watch it 1.5.
Oh, maybe even half speed to just take in The Rock even longer.
No, that movie feels long at regular speed.
Did you see Rampage?
I watched most of it, and then I got towards the end where it was actually starting to rampage, and I was like,
Not interested?
You already ruined it.
I stopped. Something distracted me, and I just never returned.
Yeah, movie's like asking for mustard at Subway. It's already too much.
What's your problem with mustard, Jamie?
It's not
Mustard
my problem
at
with mustard.
Subway.
It's Subway putting an exorbitant amount of mustard the instant it hits the bread. Fix it. Do something different. Less mustard.
So
We're in a drought.
People are upset about this, right?
People will be mad about anything.
It's divisive. We were talking about this a little bit as a group, and I'm not for it.
You think they're going to ruin
but
cinema?
I'm also not the kind of person who's like, just because I don't like it means you can't have the option, Sonny.
I'm not sure who you're mimicking right now,
Jamie
but I'm personally offended to a certain
Mustard.
extent. I feel like you're being a little bit offensive to my
But
people.
I couldn't imagine a scenario where I would ever use that, only because I understand I also listen to Audible fast and sometimes podcast fast, but I feel like pacing is an element of film, right? The speed at which the film unfolds in front of you is an intentional device.
Sure.
So it'd be like, to me, it's like Netflix is releasing a feature which changes all the orange colors to blue.
Temperature
Or whatever,
control.
like
Hey,
it's just
don't
we're just
give 'em
fucking with
ideas.
shit now. Who cares? We cut out every other. We have a new application that runs over Netflix, cuts out every other word that a character says, just cause. I'm like, but these are all very important parts of the movie. So I probably would never use it because I feel like the cost of saving time is experiencing the medium in a way in which it wasn't intended to be experienced, kind of. So I don't think I would ever use it, but at least you said that you would be down for it in specific scenarios, right?
I consider it a tool or another feature that doesn't necessarily indicate a disrespect toward film. I think I agree with you that there obviously, to enjoy a movie at its best, you want to be watching it in ideal circumstances. Are a lot of these filmmakers making their movies to be watched on a tiny phone screen? No, but people are watching them on it. So, should they be insulted by that? Is my question. And I also feel like, if I'm going to watch Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou and it's going to come to the point where, spoiler, Ned dies, I don't know. I've seen that a billion times. I don't necessarily want to fast forward through it, but I don't necessarily want to sit and watch this horrible scene that I don't like watching because it's so sad. I might watch that at 2 times speed just to get through with it.
So the next time you're watching Irreversible, you can get through the really rough
Yeah.
part at twice as fast.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you watching it in the first place?
I mean, the rest of that movie I enjoy thoroughly. It's just for emotional reasons, I usually skip that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe now I'll just watch it at 2 times speed. It's just I just consider it a tool.
Yeah.
Like were filmmakers upset when VCRs had fast forward buttons?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's just technology. I think
It seems a little bit like old man shaking his fist at the cloud.
it does a
kind
little
of.
bit. Like, are you upset that people are watching your movie on airplanes when there's a baby crying behind the? I don't know.
I saw somebody watching Dunkirk on an airplane.
Yeah,
that was the funniest thing I've
not
ever
the way
seen.
at all. You should be watching Dunkirk, but people do it.
Since film has existed, though, the delivery method has changed. Like, there's never been a guarantee that you're going to get your film seen in the theater that's up to the quality standards that you want it to be and all the effort you put into making it. Like, I get that, but I feel like that's always been a commonly accepted thing. Like,
No,
actually changing the rate at which the movie unfolds in front of you seems like that is now you're transforming the media as opposed to just getting it in a degraded quality or whatever.
I feel like the problem maybe isn't that the delivery method has changed, it's that the receiving method has changed. So people are upset about other people digesting their media more than they're upset about people giving them options to watch it differently. If people use this more often, that is something filmmakers have to take into account. I would love to know the statistics of how often people watch things faster and which movies are watched faster in general.
I wonder if it's partly in due to stuff like the internet, where Rotten Tomatoes, these movie aggregate sites where like viewer review counts, because 100,000 people can go onto Rotten Tomatoes and vote for a movie, whereas 30 years ago it was just a critic that sat down in a critic screening and they reviewed the movie, and that was what was out there about the perception of your movie. But now 20,000 of those people can watch it, I guess, at time and a half speed, and that might influence their perception of the movie. And they can publicly talk about that, and they don't have to say, well, I watched it at time and a half speed, so that
you should have to disclose that shit. If you watch a movie and you review it, you have to disclose the speed.
Like if you make a tweet and you're like, I didn't like,
The Irishman.
The Irishman, but you have to say, but I did watch it at time and a half speed.
I did get to watch it in 2 hours, and you spent 3.5 on it.
If you use steroids and enter the home run derby, you should have to let everyone know. That's how I feel.
Home run derby.
I think, there's two things about it. One is, I'm surprised Netflix is, whatever. I guess they have statistics and they see how people are watching things anyway.
I think this helps them juke the stats, really.
But how does it help them? Because
more people watch more episodes of their stuff.
Yeah, but they don't serve ads. So watch time, numbers, I feel like, doesn't matter for them. What content is what matters. So why are they giving people an opportunity to blast through their library of content even faster? That's surprising.
Maybe you want to rewatch all of Cheers, but you don't want to watch it in normal time.
But they want you to take normal time, because that way, when they just sign a deal that says we have Cheers, that's going to take you months, or in our case, years, to get through all of that. And that seems like that's what Netflix wants, because they want you to continue subscribing month after month. So I'm just curious. This seems like something YouTube would do, because YouTube can then serve 50% more. Oh, yeah, I know.
They do a lot. This is a mobile thing, so this is only allowed on Netflix
but
mobile.
Again, that's interesting.
It's just mobile. Ads.
But is that just they're just testing it on mobile?
Yeah,
and it's not like they're saying
that would probably be the audience of people that would use this, or
the scum, the mobile scum.
Exactly. Little kids.
Just as a general thing, and this is not something that's happened immediately, but it's happening over time. Film is a metaphor that will not work on a lease, but basically, like, there's a certain methodology of turning film into the entertainment equivalent of fast food, right?
I don't follow.
Which is to say, a way easier, quicker, more digestible,
delicious,
with worse
less mustard,
like less substantive version of the initial vision of what a hamburger should be is now something that melts in your mouth because it's all made out of butter, kind of thing.
Well, and right? I think Scorsese and Coppola would say that's what Marvel films are.
No, yeah, I'm saying it's happening in a lot of different ways, and this just seems like another way of like, oh, we're just trying to give the people what they want. But at a certain point, we're going to end up in idiocracy.
No. Here's the thing: people who are serving the media to us do not want to give us what we want. They're trying to give us what we will take. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that are you more likely to eat an entire meal if it's easier to get started than to quit halfway through on a bigger meal? Like if you start into a thing and get invested because you're watching it in fast motion, when the other option is to turn it off halfway through, that's maybe keeping people around when they otherwise would have left, right? So like,
yeah. So I was gonna turn off The Handmaid's Tale, but I'll watch the rest of it.
I need to see Scientologists talk a little faster. So
it just seems like there's an easier method, which is that if you have those statistics and you see that people are turning Handmaid's Tale off 23 minutes in, then you probably, one, don't renew the show, or you share those statistics with the creators and you say, you need to find a way to make your show deal with this hump, as opposed to saying, maybe we could trick our audience into keep watching this show that we're going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to keep on our SVOD.
And that's why they're not wanting to give us what we want. They're wanting to give us what we will receive.
Well, it is a corporate testing. It's the Velociraptors testing the fences. They're seeing what we'll tolerate.
Awesome.
I think they're probably throwing shit out there, seeing do people even like this?
Totally
maybe no one uses it and then it just disappears.
Totally fine.
Probably what's going to happen.
Probably not even a calculated decision.
I just think I'll never use it because I think it manipulates things in a way that's maybe more different than just watching on your phone, or when Adam watches movies over the course of 10 years on a bus, and he'll watch it in 5-minute increments.
I will probably also never use this because I don't have Netflix on my phone.
You get really upset with me because I will watch a movie in little tiny chunks.
I don't get upset.
How can you enjoy that?
I don't get upset with you. And also, I watched all those movies to fall asleep to in chunks. I'm watching Frankenstein Chronicles in 8-minute chunks because that's as long as I can last to fall asleep. The last thing I want is for it to play faster. Because then what am I going to do in 3 weeks when I can't fall asleep?
Oh, can you slow it down?
Yeah, so you can languish and enjoy your Frankenstein Chronicles.
That's
at half speed.
You can't slow that show down. It's at a snail's pace. I assure you.
So we're talking about mobile. You guys should actually go to the App Store and check out Raid Shadow Legends. Forget everything you know about mobile games because one of the most ambitious RPGs of 2019 has just been released, and it aims to change everything. Raid Shadow Legends is a free smartphone experience on par with bigger PC and console titles. Raid features a fully realized storyline, 3D graphics, giant boss fights, and PvP battles, plus hundreds of champions to collect and customize. This is not your generic mobile game. In Raid, you have the ability to customize artifacts and build a unique mastery for each one. Check out the game that has nearly 10 million players worldwide for free. Click the link in the description to start playing and to support this show. Download Raid via patron.me/filmhouse. And new players get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as a special bonus after the first 7 days of playing. Plus, get a new daily login reward for the first 90 days in the game. So what are you waiting for? Check out the video description, join the new player program, and start your journey today. So download Raid Shadow Legends for free with the link below in the description and get some sweet bonuses after you play for a week. Check them out, and thanks for supporting the show. Thanks Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the show this week. And so we have just a few minutes left to do a quick review of Jojo Rabbit. Did you see Jojo?
Yeah.
Awesome. What did you think of Jojo Rabbit, Jamie?
It good.
It good?
Good.
Nice and succinct, thank you.
I had a good time.
Did everyone here like it? Did anyone have real beef with it?
I liked it.
No.
Damn.
I have beef with someone who got beef, is what I got.
I think my only beef with it, if I was to come up with some beef, is Taika generally, he rocks so hard, makes such great movies. I don't think this lives up to his other output, honestly.
Interesting.
I had a lot of fun with the movie. It's a weird blend of comedy and drama. It is horribly sad in parts and
the entire way.
Awkwardly funny in other parts.
I have a theory about that.
Let's hear it.
I think it's actually a testament to how good I think the movie is and how talented Taika Waititi is that all the movies that he's made thus far that you can compare this to are movies that are almost just intended to be joyous. Mm-hmm. From the beginning.
So this is the opposite of his general
with the exception
joy.
of Eagle versus Shark, which is weird and somewhat off-putting, but still intended to be lovable. This movie, or then you have What We Do in the Shadows, which if you don't love those characters by the end of the 5-minute prologue that introduces you to them and you're so into it, then I don't know, you might not be a human being. But that's what the movie does.
He really does that really well at the beginning of movies. Really sells you on loving a character very quickly.
Hunt for the Wilder People starts immediately introduces you to who's the character. No characters are supposed to be unlikable, but they are immediately intended to be likable. Even the bad, you have Ricky Baker, who's introduced as the bad boy. He's going to be our focal point, but he's also kind of a troublemaker. But the things they show him doing are not troublesome, and he looks like a stuffed animal. He is immediately attended. And then his antagonist, pseudo antagonist, is Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park. It's all very intentional to be 5 minutes in, you should love everyone in this film that you're watching. You should be so charmed by them. This is the first movie I feel like he's made where by the beginning part, you feel uncomfortable getting comfortable with them because he's they're Nazis.
It does make the humor uncomfortable, I thought. I did laugh a lot in the movie, but there were several parts where I'm should I really be laughing out loud at these Nazis heiling Hitler?
I think that's a testament to the humor, right?
Yeah.
For me, at least, I thought it was really funny, and I think that was a testament to the humor, because if you start at -3 and you still get people to laugh at a 6, that's the equivalent of a 9-point joke.
Yeah, I didn't feel uncomfortable laughing at humor from Nazi characters. I felt you don't want to like sympathize or feel like a Nazi character is humanized in a way.
They did a really great job of it. If they're going to
Yeah.
make a Nazi character humanized, they wouldn't make them likable to other Nazis that exist now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
yes.
Sam
Yeah,
Rockwell, very,
it's,
very likable,
Yeah.
but no Nazi would look up to him because he's very effeminate, and that was like beautiful.
It's a really tough conundrum.
Well,
I loved Sam Rockwell
Oh my
in this
God.
movie, by the way.
One of my favorite things about this movie is that it didn't feel, and I was reading some negative reviews just because I was curious what people's perspective of, and the general consensus, just broadly, seemed to be like, oh, this like goes easy on Nazis. Like you shouldn't go so easy on Nazis. And while I understand that perspective, I didn't feel like the point of the movie was forgiveness. It wasn't like, forgive these Nazis, for they are merely human. It was human beings are very complex. And even the evil ones have a range of emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes the difference between being evil and being good is knowledge, and education and learning. Because one of my favorite things about the movie is, premise is there's this boy who's a Nazi fanboy. He loves it. It's kind of towards the end of World War II, but he's still totally pro-Nazi, and all of that is almost done by the fact that it's propaganda, the propaganda machine, and the whole society that's around him
It's all
tells
he's
him
grown up in.
Yeah.
tells him
Yeah.
that this is the coolest stuff ever, and he's completely bought into it the same way any of us would have bought into Transformers as a kid. Like he's into it. He loves it. He doesn't have Ninja Turtles, but he's got Nazism. But then through a series of circumstances, he discovers that there's actually a Jewish girl hiding away in his home, and this is now the worst thing that could possibly happen to him. But through those circumstances, they like teach each other. One of my favorite things is they make her kind of scary when she's first introduced. She's threatening.
She's like a creature
She's
in the
scary.
walls.
She's pretty mean to him. She's not just this benevolent creature that is like, well, how could you hate this thing? Like there is, and then so the thing is, it's a shared knowledge. But I don't think that's a sympathizing with Nazis at all, which is a vibe I got from some of the negative criticisms.
I think people just get lost in the idea of things.
So this is full spoiler discussion here. What I'm going to talk about.
Warning.
Here.
That's your warning.
This is your warning.
Spoilers.
So when what's the actor's name? He dances in every movie.
Sam Rockwell.
When Sam Rockwell comes into the home and they encounter the Jewish girl, and then she pretends to be his deceased sister, and she can't remember the girl's birthday, and he looks at her papers. The implication here is that Sam Rockwell like maybe concealed that information.
Oh yeah,
he covered for
absolutely.
So you're like, okay, well, he's not as evil as the evil Nazis? He's not directly evil to this one person, but he is a cog in the machine. Unless he's he's doing some undercover work where he's working with the resistance and he's undermining his Nazi constituents. Like there's this expectation that like, yeah, he is a system in the cog of this machine that is exterminating a people and oppressing a people, and so there's still that. So it's like he is a part of this machine, but then they give us these moments like that where it humanizes him. They give us the moment where it's an incredible moment when the kid, what's his name?
His little friend?
Jojo. When Jojo, what's his name? When Jojo, at the very end, after the town's been liberated and they're rounding up the Nazis, and Jojo's there in his little like makeshift SS jacket, and he's going to be rounded up with these other Nazis, and then Sam Rockwell starts spitting on him, and he's like, "Get out of here, Jew! Get out of here, Jew!" Like you get goosebumps watching it, and you're like, in your heart, you're like, "Oh no, Sam Rockwell! Like he's doing this to protect him." But we don't know, and we can only assume that where this man is in power, and he's a decorated SS officer, that he has been part of this. This massacre,
but
right?
part of the thing that I like about the movie is that it's very intentional about who it says is innocent and who it says is not. He's
killed.
Big spoiler. He's punished.
Yeah.
His character,
He's
no matter the
executed.
good that he shows or the kindness that appears through his Nazi exterior through the course of the film, he's punished by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And every single character that is that way, no matter how endearing, is punished. There's like a point where like a line is drawn. All children seem to be innocent, are considered generally innocent in this film. And I think that's a fair line to draw as well, because the way they treat Jojo's understanding of what Nazism is, and even the whole war and the purpose of the war, he has no idea.
It's just patriotism.
He has no idea.
I mean, yeah.
It's ignorance. It's not blindness, which I think is a difference.
That's who I feel like the ultimate villain of this movie was ignorance. And I think that, to me, this movie spoke so loudly for like my brain, because like growing up in the South, I was kind of like raised in a certain climate that I wasn't really given a lot of experience to understand certain differences, really. And
Sure.
I think most people in the South kind of experience this, where they grow up in one place, they stay in this place, and they sort of cook in their own belief systems.
Your own juices.
Yeah, they're just kind of simmering like a brining turkey, and it's just like
in like blind hate.
In ignorance.
Okay.
And I think what this movie does so beautifully, and it speaks a lot to like cancel culture and all this stuff. It's like this idea that your crimes are permanent, and the idea that people are labeling the opposite team by the stuff they don't like about them. The thing is that not only is it amazing that Jojo reached out to the Jewish girl and try to get to a place where he could understand her genuinely, like sincerely, like tell me about you, but she didn't say screw off. You're ignorant, and you're a murderer. You're emboldening murderers and stuff, and you're on the wrong team. Like, she didn't write him off either. And they listened to each other, and they got to know each other, and they became more understanding of the opposite team because they actually spoke and respected each other's ignorance. And it was this like. That is how you change people's minds. I grew from a bunch of ignorant perspectives as a kid, because I had one of my best friends he was gay in high school. He was the only gay guy I knew, and I would say stuff, and he would sit me down and he would say, "Hey, real quick, that's not what I appreciate. Here's what I think you're saying, and what it actually feels like." And because he respected the fact that I can learn, that meant more than the fact that I was once ignorant.
Sure, he didn't just write you off as some sort of bigot.
Right.
He
I think that's how you
saw
make
you
change.
as enough of a person to want to
Yeah.
to explain.
We have to. I think it's the idea of like opening up people to conversation and discussion and respect for listening, rather than just writing folks off because they are a part of a thing that you don't appreciate or something.
Well said.
Yeah. So
Very poetic,
I don't know.
Jamie.
I think that's a tough challenge, and I appreciate Taika Waititi for taking on a tough challenge. I will probably not watch this movie as much as I've already watched Hunt for the Wilder People or What We Do in the Shadows, but I think that's because it's a more challenging movie.
Well, opposite the comedy are some really deep, horrible, sad
Yeah,
things.
I'd say like comedy drama ratio is definitely higher than some of his other films.
Yeah, but I do think you will I think you can put on a movie like Hunt for the Wilder People and just feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
But you can put on a movie like this and then you can think more about the world and the people around you.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And
yeah.
there's huge benefits to all of them. And
Like I was so
It's certainly
worried.
more challenging on the audience than just the joy pill of most of his films.
Yeah, they have this joyful moment at the end of the film where he's reunited with his little chunky friend. But I'm like,
Yoki,
what's his name?
right?
Yorkie.
Yorkie?
Yorkie? Is it Yorkie?
something
Oh,
like
he
that.
says with a German accent, Yoki, or whatever.
But at the same time, I'm like, that's great, but do we really know what's going to happen to that kid?
No.
Like we
No,
don't. We don't know, and I mean,
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea of tying the shoes.
yeah.
That's like the whole movie kept having the theme. I don't think just so you recognize the mom's shoes in that one poignant moment, but I think the whole concept of tying the shoe is the implication of ignorance. It's like the kid's shoes were constantly untied, and he had to have them relaced by his mom, who knew better, and he eventually learned to tie the shoes around him. And it was like, who knows what's going to happen next, but he is better. He's better set to move forward with people around him because he learned how to tie his shoes.
Someone else's shoes for them.
Well, to teach them.
Well, also the first time he ties, the shoe tying is in the other direction. You think about what that moment is in his life, and you're like, oh, yeah. I don't know. I think it's great.
It's
I think
it's
a great
really
movie.
beautiful.
It's a great movie. I understand people not being like, I like on the liked it scale, did not maybe like it as much as his other work, but that doesn't mean I think it's any less
It's important.
talent and good. But
starting to play Hidden Life, which I think explores some of these themes.
Oh man, this
in a way darker, heavier.
I was this trailer played before Jojo Rabbit, and I was like,
Yeah.
why is everything steady cam in a wide
yeah.
angle
I was
lens.
going to say,
but
they're shooting on like an
period.
8mm
It
Kubrick
was
lens. Like, get off.
driving me crazy.
Yeah.
Go. No.
Jojo, though, I think we all say go see it.
Yeah.
It's not in super huge wide release. But
I say watch it
go
in the
seek it
theater.
out if you can.
Yeah.
Watch it with people so you can hear everybody else feel ashamed of laughing.
Or you can hear the person sitting behind you
Oh, God.
who's
We had the worst theater
chomping
experience.
I'm gonna just real quick, I'm gonna take my one opportunity of
This is your
having anyone
soapbox.
who listens to me to say,
You made eye contact with your wife and said
hey,
it.
asshole that put your popcorn bag on the ground directly on ear level with Elise and I behind us, jamming your hand in there like some sort of kung fu
Going at
trainee training in the sand. Every single time you want to pull out one kernel makes a lot of noise. Want to know how I know? We told you. Several times we told you it was making a lot of noise and you kept putting it back down. Okay? I know you love your bag because I watched you walk out of the theater with it after the movie was done. There was still half a fucking bag's worth of popcorn
How much
in there.
mustard was in that bag?
Because you were eating the kernel one at a time with your lips apart in your back molar so I could hear you chew with all the air escaping, which is not something you should be able to hear from 2 meters away, but I was able to hear it.
I was 15 feet away and I could hear this guy's every bite
God.
of
You
popcorn.
garbage person, okay?
He was worse. He was
Please
worse.
teach me how to not hate you. Please make a movie about that.
This is my favorite opinion.
And he was worse
Christ alive.
than old lady with dog and young couple with baby.
Yeah.
Which the landmark where we went to see this movie. I don't know what you're doing if you actually hate the people that come to see movies in your theater, but don't let a lady with a dog in. Maybe
don't
they
bring your
legally
dog.
have to.
No, I mean,
don't know.
it was a service animal that rolls around on the ground
Yeah.
and yelps during the movie.
That's not a service animal.
Oh God. Jamie, thanks for coming around this week, man.
Oh, I thought I was in trouble the way you said
Yeah.
it.
No,
Thank you for
and that
having
man
me.
was you.
Jamie, don't you
We
talk
have something
smack
to
about
say.
service animals.
You got anything to plug, or what are you up to? What's going on?
I have a show. I mean, I have a YouTube channel that you can go visit. It is. I wish that I had the name for the URL, but it's Scooty Doots. Is the
Okay.
URL
You got it.
C/Scooty Doots.
We'll put that in the description
see you there.
somewhere.
And at JALLENMC on all social media where it matters. So that's
Cool. What you doing on your YouTube channel these days?
Vivo.
I have. That's it. It's just me saying the word Vivo 100 times a day. No, I have a bunch of stuff that I'm gearing up to do more of. But I have a show called Gray Area where I sort of dissect controversial ideas and talk to both sides. Sort of like what happens in Jojo Rabbit.
Cool.
Right
Your
on.
regular Taika Waititi.
I wish.
Well, thanks for coming around, man.
Thank
We'll
you
have to have
so
back
much for
soon.
having me. I love
It was great to have you around. We are not gonna have time to talk about the Dr. Dolittle remake this week. I'm sorry, everybody, but
Next
you
week.
next
This will
time.
become our Matt Damon on
we'll
Jimmy
get you
Kimmel.
next
Next,
time.
sorry guys, next time.
but thanks for coming around, you guys. We'll be back next week. Thanks again to Away Bags and Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this week. We really appreciate it. Go check out their stuff to help support the show. And yeah, we'll be back next week. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Palpatine is about to kill Rey, and then he goes, "I am your father," and then a voice off from distance goes, "Don't believe him," and in a wheelchair, Darth Maul comes out,
Oh my God.
and he goes, "Why do you think you had two sabers in your vision, in your trailer vision?"